Hippity hoppity, guys. It's Collin. Welcome back to the Tye-Dyed Iguana. We're going to be talking all about Pixie frog diet today. Our first consideration when discussing Pixie frog diets is going to be frequency. Here at the Tye-Dyed Iguana, we generally recommend feeding Pixie frogs usually 3 times per week. So I like to do personally Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then give a little bit of a light fasting on the weekend. So frequency, we recommend generally 3 times per week. Obviously, if your frog is having a big, metabolic burn, or it's a very active grower, you may need to increase this slightly. But in general, we recommend 3 times per week. If your animal is significantly older or much younger, you may need to increase this frequency slightly. But if you shoot for 3 times a week, you're going to generally have good success. The second consideration when considering Pixie frog diet is the size of the prey item. We generally want to feed a prey item that can precisely fit in the space roughly between the frog's eyes. So for example, if the frog is large enough, and obviously Pixie frogs get substantially large, if it's a very large frog, we can get away with a larger item. And having said that, conversely, with a small frog, smaller item. So in general, for young Pixie frogs, we will typically recommend doing crickets as a staple food item, and then once the animal gets substantially larger or with growth, we can start adding other items to the diet. So once the animal is roughly past the 2-inch size, I generally like to incorporate some smaller or some slightly larger items to the prey. And then when you get all the way to the adult size, that's like, softball size and up, when they get larger, generally you have a lot more flexibility on the items you can feed. But some common considerations would be, keep in mind Pixie frogs are generally insectivores, but they are kind of opportunistic, so they will eat a variety of other foods. When they are larger, a lot of people are very tempted to feed them like rodents and things like that. Rodents can be fed occasionally, I'd say maybe on the instance of like once per month, but keep in mind we want to stay away from excessively feeding rodents. It can actually lead to like fatty liver disease and gout and things like that. Keep in mind also that some of these frogs have a harder time digesting larger prey items. So in general, I like to stay with usually like a fuzzy rat or below if you go with a live rodent. And again, that's only usually like as a treat or a supplemental food item. For larger juveniles and individuals, we have various sizes of crickets. So for babies, you can feed crickets, usually like a half a dozen 3 times a week or something like that. If you're dealing with like a quarter-sized frog, obviously the amount is going to increase as the frog's size grows up. These guys are really good about tong feeding, so we can also feed roaches and things like that. We can also do superworms. These can be a little bit higher on the fatty side, so I like to do these as more of a treat. And keep in mind too, you don't want to do these on tiny frogs because they have a lot of that chitin or that exoskeleton protein in them, which could possibly cause impaction. So remember, superworms should be fed in moderation. On larger specimens, they can be tong fed like night crawlers and other worms. Night crawlers are a great option too. I like to give them a little bit of a rinse with some nice dechlorinated tap water before I feed them. I like to tong feed them as well, but usually adult Pixies will go crazy for night crawlers. There's also several different commercial diets. So this product is called Pack Attack. So it's made by Hikari. It's a fortified pellet formula. What you do is basically soak the pellet in water, and then it can be tong fed to the frog. With these, you'd only give them a couple at a time, depending on the size of the frog. But this is a fortified food, basically, that's going to be fortified with vitamins, minerals, and different proteins all in one. This stuff, a lot of breeders will like feed almost exclusively, but here at the Tye-Dyed Iguana, we recommend varying up the diet, rotating between live insects and various other prey, including prepared foods like these. Another great option for feeding adult Pixie frogs can be tong feeding like frozen silver sides. So you want to thaw these out, obviously, in warm water. Or like dechlorinated or lukewarm water before feeding, but you can actually tong feed silver sides. These can be a great source of vitamins as well as omega-3 fatty acids and things like that, which are beneficial for the frog. As with all reptiles and amphibians, anytime you are feeding the frog, you want to make sure you're dusting the insects or the prey item with a high quality calcium or multivitamin supplement. And if you'd like a specific recommendation on that, you can stop by in store or drop us a message online. We'd be happy to give you a recommendation depending on the type of frog. And if you have any questions, you can stop by or leave us a message. Thanks and have a great day.